Good evening and welcome once again to Plain Talk. The discussions over the past week have continued to be the economy, Berbice Bridge, gold, investments, the role of the opposition, and particularly the leader of the opposition. So I thought it would be good to bring back an old friend and colleague who is very conversant with these issues and who is known for not being afraid to express his opinions on any matter. I am, of course, speaking about Mr. Raymon Gaskin, management consultant, retired,
Retired, yeah.
everything
Pensioner,
else,
yeah.
pensioner.
Yes.
Raymond, welcome to Plain Talk.
Thank you, Chris.
You've been away for some time,
Yes, I was away a little bit on holiday, visiting family.
and that's to the great United States of
I
America.
went to the United States and Canada. Yes.
You didn't get to see Donald Trump by any chance?
No, I didn't get it upon, but I saw him on TV a lot. And he's on TV again tonight, I think, on some
He's pretty
big
good
debate.
in managing TV.
Yeah, but then we're not carrying, none of the stations carrying the Republican debate, which is a shame. I like to watch things like that.
How do you assess the state of politics in the U.S. now? Obama, we often hear about the lame duck president, the person who's going out. We know in another 14 months the U.S. will have elections. Obama.
I don't think
yeah.
it's a lame duck president. President Obama is trying to get a lot of things done before he goes.
He's got a bucket list.
He's got a whole big long list, starting with this Cuba thing, this reestablishment of diplomatic relations with Cuba. The big item had to do with this Iran deal. They call it the nuclear deal. Allegedly,
The environment.
The environment. He's pushing some ideas on that before he goes. I think he'll get a lot done before he goes. Then, of course, he's working closely with the Pope on Cuba to bring down socialism. See, the Pope is going down there again. So they're trying to get a lot of things done.
Of course, you studied in Russia. You lived in Russia. You're very fluent in Russian. You're very pro-Russian. Would you describe yourself as such?
I'm a big supporter of the Russian people. Yes, I'm a big supporter of the Russian people and the Soviet peoples in general. It is my considered opinion that because of the struggles and the sacrifice of the Soviet peoples in the Second World War, which we just celebrated the 70th anniversary of, that we were able, we meaning our people, we defeated Hitler and fascism. And a lot of people don't know that.
Let's put it in context. As part of the Allied forces.
No, not part of the Allied forces. The Soviet peoples took the brunt of the attack of Hitler in Europe. The Americans were down in Asia, in Iwo Jima and Guadalcanal and all of that. The British were struggling with the Battle of Britain. I think this week is the 70th anniversary. We did very well in the Battle of Britain.
And then they were in
Africa,
yes.
trying to steal African lands, fighting Rommel, of course. And Montgomery of Alamein and those guys. But in Europe, the main theater, the main war, the Soviet peoples carried the struggle there and liberated Russia, Hungary, Poland, Czechoslovakia. All of them came right up to Germany to take the surrender from these fascists. A lot of people don't know that.
Some people would say they liberated them only to enslave them.
That is not true.
How would you rate, objectively, how would you rate the period when you had the Iron Curtain, the Soviet Union?
I don't use language like that.
No, but I'm saying that was a term that was used.
But
yes.
what Churchill used, the phrase there.
And the Warsaw Pact countries.
An Iron Curtain had descended on Europe. I don't believe that, of course. You had there the Russian armed forces had come to Germany, and the war was over. Germany was divided. The Cold War started, of course. There was also, among other things, a plan of the British to reinvade Russia once again after the war. And that went on for many years. The NATO was created. The Warsaw Pact was created in response to NATO. The Warsaw Pact was dissolved many years ago. NATO is still there. I don't know for what reason, because I don't know where they believe the big challenge is coming from. So that's what you had. You had NATO and the Warsaw Pact. And you have the Eastern European countries in the 80s after the fall of Poland, with the help of the Vatican and all of that. And many other countries changed. And then, of course, the change came itself to the Soviet Union in 1992, 91, the Gorbachev years, Yeltsin, all of that. And you have a whole new situation in the world, in Eastern Europe, Central Europe, and so on.
You raised an interesting question about threats.
Mm-hmm.
How would you assess the threat of IS, the Islamic State? What's called the Islamic State,
What they call
the Caliphate.
Yeah. Well, the whole origin and development of IS is a complicated issue. You have in the Middle East, of course, starting with the Bush invasion of Iraq to overthrow, to get rid of Saddam and put in place their own people and dismantle the entire Iraqi armed forces.
And government machinery as well.
Government machinery. Then you have this thing repeated, and to kill Saddam. Then you have this thing repeated in Libya, the killing of Gaddafi, the creation of the destruction of the Libyan state and the creation of Sheikh Qas in the place. And you have that in Syria now, the daily bombardment of Syria, ostensibly to fight ISIS, but creating this massive exodus of millions of people and destroying an entire country. If you look at it at Aleppo and all over the place, Palmyra, the whole place is being destroyed. These are war crimes. These are crimes committed against these people.
We're talking about we're talking about.
And you have all these air forces bombing Syria. When did Syria ever bomb anybody or attack any country that they could go down there and start bombing this place?
My question to you was about the threat of IS.
The threat of IS came out of all of that.
Yes.
I came out of Iraq and came out. IS is a creation of the West. The West created this monster called IS. They already had Al-Qaeda, which was under Al-Qaeda. They created Al-Qaeda years ago to fight the Russians in Afghanistan. So it is the West that created all this chaos all the place. But what you have now, as we say in Guyana, what goes around comes around. They're faced with the refugees. They never expected that. If they had known, they would have had to face 4 million people. They may not have done it. They have the problem there in their hand. What goes around comes around. I have no sympathy for them.
How serious do you think the threat of IS to world affairs?
No, IS is not a threat to world affairs.
It's localized?
IS is a Middle East phenomenon that could be defeated. It could be defeated. I noticed this week the Russians have gone to Syria with some help.
Yes, I was going to ask you, what is your understanding of the Russians' role in Syria?
Oh, well, the Russian had a base there some time ago. They've had a base for some time near Latakia. The Russians have always wanted to go to Syria to help Assad and deal with it. They couldn't do it because of this Iranian negotiation. But now that is over, the Russians could now pay some attention to Syria to support Assad, to defend that base which they have there, which they think is important, to help the fight against ISIS. And they will go now and see if you can. And this whole question of millions of people pouring into Europe. Don't forget, Russia is a European country. Russia has its own problems with the Muslim populations there. A lot of them restive in Dagestan and Chechnya. And the Russians have come to the position that the time has come now for them to be a little more active in that place.
Active with what objective?
I just told you, to secure the position they have in Syria, to help Assad, defend Assad, to fight ISIS and defeat them. That's what they're there for, yes. And to give Assad the help he needs to defeat ISIS.
You see in any of this that they're trying to stem the flow of refugees to Europe?
The flow of refugees will come to an end when the war is over. When the war ends, all those that will end and people start coming back into Syria right now because of this bombing that is taking place from the air by the Turkish air forces, the American air forces, the Canadian air force, the British and all them. People understandably are running away from the place. When the war is over, the refugee crisis will be over. You have to end the war first.
My several conversations with you and extend over several years suggest that you're pro-Russia but not pro-China.
No, I'm a big supporter of the Chinese Revolution of October 149.
But are you a supporter of the
Chinese
state capitalism
Oh,
type
in China, the Chinese Revolution that triumphed in 1949 under the leadership of Mao Zedong. What you have in China today is not that, although the Communist Party of China is still the party in charge. And the Chinese have done well over the years. But the Chinese are not doing socialism and socialist revolution and socialist construction at all. They're not doing that. They're doing capitalism. The Communist Party of the Soviet Union...
Is it capitalism masked as socialism? Because it's still led by the Communist Party of China.
It's led by the Communist Party of China, but the Communist Party of China has brought in a lot of people in what they call the consultative committee, which has businessmen and capitalists and all that. And they're still trying to run the show with the party and all these consultative groups because they have an aversion to opposition parties and so on. But China is doing well, but they're not doing socialism. In Russia, the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917 has been derailed by the Yeltsin people and Gorbachev, and you have new people in place there and a mixed economy. That's what you have in both of those countries. But you're seeing the derailment of the revolution.
We saw the Economist a couple of weeks ago parodying the Great Wall of China on their cover page saying the Great Fall of China.
No, it's not the Great Fall of China. What is happening to China is not the Great Fall of China. What is happening in China is what I call the derailment of the Chinese Revolution, of the Mao Zedong Revolution that came to power in October 149.
Derailment how?
It's been derailed. Derailed. Ideologically, they've gone on a different track. You've seen train tracks in Europe. You have tracks go slow and some tracks go like that. They've been... The socialist revolution train has been derailed and has gone on the next track. It's happening in Russia too.
But
because of people like in China, people like Deng Xiaoping and Gorbachev, they derailed the revolution. That's what you have.
But
the Cuban Revolution is being derailed too. We'll see it. We live to see it derailed by the Pope and all of them. Go ahead.
But what we've been seeing in China, certainly that was the beginning of a series of events. The stock market took a real beating. The Chinese currency took
it's part of capitalism, part of developing capitalism.
So it's the capitalism element that has been delayed.
Yes. So the socialist revolution has been derailed by these people who are trying to build capitalism, build a capitalist society. And when you build a capitalist society, you have all those ups and downs in the stock market and so on. It's not unexpected that you'll have all these problems.
So it is not a derailment, and it is just an adjustment. It's just an adjustment.
The communist revolution has been derailed, and you have capitalism now being built in China. That is the big derailment.
If they were to say...
Because you go back to Mao Zedong, you'll read what he wrote about the revolution in China.
Mr. Gaskin, if you look at Mao Zedong and up to 2 decades ago, the level of poverty in China, rural China was not a place anybody wanted to be at.
That's correct.
So what has happened? I mean, China has been transformed.
Yes, but
it's a powerhouse of a nation now.
But on the 1949, October 1, it started. The transformation of China started October 149 with the victory of the revolution.
Where is this derailment if you've got all this transformation?
And all these people lifted out the poverty, and the basis for all that, the growth in the steel industry and hydro and electricity and all that, since 49 is being built with the help of the Soviets. You think they just built it? You think they just built all that thing a couple years ago, since Deng Xiaoping? It started building since 1949.
Yes,
since the revolution.
But Raymon, we know.
And now what is happening in China is building on the basis of that, plus foreign capital and other capital. But the basis was laid since 49, October 1. And in Russia, the basis was laid since 1917, since the Bolshevik Revolution.
What would you identify as the bases or the pillars of the Chinese Revolution that led to this massive expansion of wealth and greatness by the Chinese?
This started in 1949.
Well, tell me how.
I will spend a whole night talking about China. I want to talk about Guyana. How
We
China
don't get
reached-
there. Come now, man.
No. China at a certain, it's a long history from 49 October 1 to
yes.
2015.
So all I'm
and how
asking,
Russia
where
was
were
derailed.
where were the pillars? That's all I'm
And
asking.
in Russia, the difference between Russia and China in all this derailment and the building of capitalism in these two countries is that in Russia, they moved to a multi-party system since the Yeltsin thing and the abolition of the Communist Party and so on. But in China, they've been able to keep the Communist Party still at the political powerhouse in China while they're doing all these reforms and changing things. In Russia, they went about it the wrong way and they destroyed the party and created chaos in the place with the oligarchs and bandit capitalism and all that. In China, you have a more orderly process going on there.
All right.
Of destroying the Mao Zedong revolution.
I wanted to use China as the link to get into the Guyana economy. China, hold on.
Good.
China was and still is a major player in the Guyanese economy.
Yes, that's correct.
Given the shock, if not the turmoil, that China has been going through, what effect do you think it would have on Guyana and its economy?
I would say if you look at the Chinese players in the economy here, you have the Baishanlin people, you have in forestry, they've moved into mining, some of them into housing development, a lot of them into the retail trade.
They're big into construction?
They're into construction. They have the people here building things now. All that whole big place next door to the Chinese embassy is being built by the, China Trading and so on. They will continue. They will continue that. That will still continue. Because in terms of the problems in China and the ups and downs over there, Guyana is a relatively small thing in all of that. Small investment, relatively.
Yeah, but it's... One, you have the host country, and it's welcome to the donor or the foreign investor.
Capital, yeah.
Do you see any shift in the emphasis in Guyana's foreign and economic relationship pre-May 11th, 2015 and post-May 11th, 2015?
Yeah, I would say that you can expect a shift. It appears to me that this present administration is more pro-American than, say, the Jagdeo administration or Ramattar was to begin with. And the Jagdeo administration and Ramattar, they always look to China for investment and loans and projects and so on. This present administration may not be so inclined for the time being. And I believe a lot of those...
Why that caveat?
We don't know what will happen next year. We don't know what will happen next year. We know for the time being, it doesn't look... We're still looking into these Chinese deals. We're investigating them, the Chedi Jagan deal, the construction of the Marriott. We're looking at Baishan Lin. We're looking at all of that. So now the Chinese themselves may be just taking a little wait-and-see attitude towards this present government. I think so. But we don't know next year what will happen. And a lot of these contracts we have with the Chinese, I think they should all be published. We should read these secret deals and see what is it was being done all the time in our name. I really do believe that. I believe that.
China began, or certainly became, very prominent in terms of investment when it was awarded the contract to build the Skeldon sugar factory.
Yeah, the $200 million US deal.
That factory has been a colossal disaster.
Disaster is the right word for that place, yes.
Why has that not affected Guyana-China relationship?
Well, because you mean at the government?
Yes.
Well, I
because
think,
we lumbered
mm-hmm,
with a massive debt
mm-hmm,
and an elephant that can't move. That's costing you money.
well, because we're still trying to borrow from them for Chedijagan Airport. We're still hoping that if the Myla Falls were to go through, there'd be a major investor there and help to finance it. So they're proceeding very cautiously with them. Because of all these things down the road that we may need the Chinese help to do these things. The proposal on the new Demerara Harbour Bridge, the fixed bridge over the Demerara, mostly is coming from the Chinese for a fixed bridge for about 300 million US if that were to go ahead. And they're looking at the feasibility of a Chinese fixed bridge over the Demerara River for about 300 million US. So we're still talking to them and looking at the deals that they're proposing. But the Skeldon is a disaster. We should stop paying for it. We should stop paying for it until the Chinese fix it. It's as simple as that.
You know, there's a view that the Skeldon factory is unfixable.
No, I don't believe that. And you could fix anything.
You can fix anything, but the cost can probably be exceeded.
We should get them to fix it. Since we buy the thing and then walk in, you ever buy a car and then walk in, you carry it back to the dealer and fix it. And when they fix it, we'll pay for it. Should get the Chinese to fix it. Since it's their thing and this is a new thing, they should fix it.
Of course, if your technical people have signed off on it and said, yes, this is good, and you've started to operate it, your position is relatively weak, though, isn't it?
It's weak, but
legally.
Yeah, but that's for lawyers to argue about. That's a good thing for lawyers to argue about. The fact of the matter is they didn't walk in. And the second fact is that the people of this country got to pay back 200 million US for it. So you don't need lawyers to argue law there. We need to get it done. Lawyers will argue law all the time. It's 200 million US, it ain't working, it got to be fixed. The Chinese deliver it, the Chinese have to fix it. It's as simple as that. And somebody got to tell them.
GuySuCo has been considered an industry in which there is both internal and external threats and risks. That has been
no, GuySuCo is a company.
GuySuCo
is a company inside the
it's been aggravated and exacerbated by this Skeldon plan. How do you fix GuySuCo if you can't fix Skeldon?
Well, the government has a whole team of people looking at GuySuCo, headed by Parvatan and Clive Thomas and Piggott and all of them now. I won't like to preempt their report, but I understand they're supposed to report to the government what they found and what could be done. So and they have a new board with Clive Thomas as chairman, and they have to deal with it. I think so.
I noticed in today's papers that GuySuCo has experienced its highest weekly production since 2012. Does that give you a lot of cause for hope?
No, none at all. I consider all of it propaganda. It's all propaganda.
Propaganda by and for whom?
For me to read all this nonsense, I don't believe it. The fact of the matter, this year GuySuCo is now going to do 200,000 tons. Last year they did little over 200, and the year before 186,000. GuySuCo is a total disaster. They were putting out propaganda that this week they had more production than last week. Who cares? The bottom line for GuySuCo, your annual production, your deficit, GuySuCo is costing this treasury about $10 billion a year. $10 billion is $30 million per day with 16,000 people. And half of them don't turn up to work, we're told. GuySuCo is a total disaster that need tough management and tough people to turn it around and straighten it out.
But can it be turned around?
If it can be turned around, it's got to be.
I'm asking you, do you think
Parvatan and Clive Thomas looking at all that.
But in your view?
Oh, a lot can be done at GuySuCo, in my opinion, to bring it to a break-even position. And
meaning
stop
the
this
cost and the
revenue. And to end this hemorrhaging and the subsidies from the Treasury. And I think the new board should be given this mandate to bring GuySuCo to a break-even position within a short space of time. I'm thinking about a year or 18 months. If not, then we're into the business of privatization and closing it down, if that's what needs to be done. But it's not sustainable, and it's not tenable that every year the taxpayers of this country got to pay $9-10 billion a year to upkeep this company. It's entirely ridiculous. In no part of the world you'll get something like this.
As we're in Berbice, metaphorically and virtually. Let's talk about the Berbice Bridge. This is something you had. Hold on. Let me introduce it
long ago.
You introduced it long ago. You were a consultant, New Building Society, when the idea of the investment came up. Tell us, what was your position then?
I told him not to invest in it. It's bad news. Not to invest in it, not to put a penny in New Building Society money in it. I looked at all the projections and the reports of the previous people, and I think the projections were all over optimistic and they were all flawed. And I told the New Building Society not to invest in this thing. It wouldn't work.
Yet, Mr. Gaskin, the New Building Society has said it's been one of their best investments.
Yes, eventually they said it because they get a very massive rate of return on the investment. They keep saying that all the time. And the company has a deficit of 1-something billion and now looking for a 55% increase in tolls to deal with the deficits that it has. Of course they'll say it's a good investment for the time being, but it's not sustainable. The bridge cannot continue the way it is. That's why they're looking for a 55% increase in the tolls. But the time has come to take back that bridge, to pay off these people and take back the bridge from them. It's as simple as that.
Who should take it back? The government?
The state, yeah, the government should take it back.
Are you recommending the nationalization of the bridge?
I have to pay them off, pay off these people, let them go home and take back the bridge into make it a public bridge. They'll be like the Demerara Harbor Bridge is. Yes, pay them off and let them go home, yes. All of them.
And what do you do about the tolls?
Oh, well, then we can fix tolls. We can have tolls that are, we'll be able to cut the tolls there, I would say, now at $2,002, down to about $700-800. Easily, because you wouldn't be faced with the kind of heavy financing costs at 11 and 7 and so on. You could issue state bonds at 3.7% to finance that thing and refinance it and bring down the tolls to $700-800. It's not difficult to do. You're a financial man.
Are you, as an individual, a person that pays a lot of attention to fears about acquisition, of nationalization, and maybe socialism and dictatorship? And
I think if the president were to meet with the shareholders of the bridge and the bank and GBTI and New Building Society and all these people, Ramroop, and say, here, gentlemen, we've come to the position where we're going to pay you off your investment. I don't think anybody would consider that nationalization or expropriation or anything. I don't think so. And I think they'll be glad to be rid of it anyhow. They'll be glad to go.
Do you think that would undermine the concept of private-public partnership, which is a model that we hear
the model,
so successful?
Not here. I don't know of any successful private-public partnership model here in Guyana. I don't know of any. It's private greed. Private greed, that's what it is, mixed with government facilitation. When you talk public-private, that's what you're talking about here. Private greed and public facilitation, that's what it is. I don't support all of that. I don't know of any public-private thing that has worked in this country. And that certainly ain't working. With all the secret deals, the secret formula for the increase in tolls that are embedded in the concession agreement that we can't get to see. It's totally ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous, and all those things should be published for the people of this country to see. Because the people money, the people subsidy, the people traveling, the people are the consumers, and we have to pay the tolls. It's as simple as that. I don't know why it's so difficult for these people to understand it.
One of the points you have made in the past about the Berbice Bridge is the question of the monopoly, or the limited monopoly that it enjoys. Is that a big issue, in your view?
No, the big issue at the Berbice Bridge, the big issue, in my opinion, is the ownership structure the loan capital, the loan instruments, the cost of capital, which in order to recover it, it has to be recovered from the tolls. There's no traffic there. You have to recover it from the traffic, and there is no traffic, and you're saddled and burdened with all this heavy outlay in interest costs on the debt instruments and loan capital. There's no equity capital there, very little. It's loan capital. And once you have the whole thing as loan capital, you have a problem. You have to service debt. Anytime you borrow money, you got to service debt. People don't remember that.
Is the problem really that the concession period was too short?
No. It's not the problem, the concession period of 21 years. The problem there is the cost of capital. The cost of the instruments is far too exorbitant. And we didn't need to go that route either. You don't need to pay people 7 and 11 and give these huge guaranteed rates of return when the T-bill rate is 2.7%. Why you need to do that? Why would you need to do that? When you could do a state bond at 2.9 or 3.2 and take the money and put it in the bridge.
So you would have recommended that the government issue
bonds,
paper, financial paper.
Yes, 20-year bonds for that thing.
Is that option still on the?
Well, I don't know. The financial people could look at it. You're a big financial man, and Jordan and all of them. If I were to advise the government, I'd tell them that. But the government has already ruled out, I think unfortunately so, taking back the bridge on national level because they think it will impact on investor confidence in Guyana. It has nothing to do with investor confidence. You have to take back the bridge. No, because investors who look at Guyana, who want to invest in this country, they want to go for the gold. They're not interested in what you're doing with the bridge. All the investors that have come here for the last umpteen years, they come for the natural resources, they come for the forestry, they come for the gold, and they come for the diamonds. They don't come for bridge, they come for that. And if you have gold and they want to come, they'll come. You see they're pouring gold today for the Canadian company, I think. Oh, my poor gold, 3.3 million ounces of gold, and when the gold done, they're gone. And what we get? Nothing left for it, 5% royalty. It's all bad news, bad strategy. Bad news, bad strategy, colonialism. We'll see what royalty these here will pay.
Well, you've just raised the question now.
Because both sides, the Chinese not paying royalty. You talk about the Chinese not paying royalty in the bauxite and Linden. What do you think this is? A free-for-all? You think you could go to China and take bauxite from there without paying royalty? You could go to Russia and take bauxite? The Rusal company moving the bauxite from Berbice without paying royalty? This is all nonsense. And I hope the government deals with the generals who are running things here. The earlier the better.
When you say generals, what?
We've got General Harmon, I'm talking about, and the brigadier. We cannot allow nobody to remove natural resources from this country without paying royalties. It's as simple as that. You couldn't do it in China, you couldn't do it in Russia. Yeah. And we allow them to come and fetch away all this thing like if it's a free-for-all. What is going on here?
The gold mining sector.
Oh, you tell me about them. Oh, yes.
Played a big part in the growth of the real economy over the past several years. They contributed. Whether you challenge the figures, the statistics, is a different matter.
Yeah, they
but
contributed.
It shows that they have contributed.
Yeah, rice, sugar, gold, bauxite.
At every level in the economy.
And
they are now saying that they need government support to stay afloat.
No, what's my opinion on that?
Yes.
They don't.
Why not?
What support do they need to stay afloat? $1,200 an ounce is a good shot for gold. And when gold was 800 and 700, they were hoping it will reach 8 and 9. Now it's 1,200. What's the problem? No, they're always crying and complaining. They're always crying and complaining. That's their nature. And you look at the rice millers and the farmers, they do 700,000 tons, they still want help. They want a bank, they want this, they want that. They're doing quite well on their own. They don't need any help. And this whole idea, the president and I will reduce the royalty rate on gold to help with the smuggling phenomenon, entirely ridiculous. 1% reduction in rate on royalty on 400,000 ounces a year at $1,200 is 1 billion Guyana dollars. We cannot afford it. We cannot afford to reduce the royalty rate on gold in this country. They tried it some time ago. I was in government. I remember when Pricewaterhouse tried to reduce the royalty rate for Omar, and I had to fight them down.
Yes, but if you don't, the gold is smuggled to Suriname, where the rate is lower.
So what do you deal with smugglers? What do you deal with smugglers?
Well, first of all, you have to find them in order to deal with them.
Yeah, okay.
You know we have a very porous border. It's very large.
So you have all these smugglers committing crime. So you lower the rate for everybody because a couple of people smuggling gold. When you get down to this business of gold smuggling, you have two levels of this thing. You have the miners who make the gold, and you have the guys who smuggle gold. Mm-hmm. Many miners do not smuggle gold. And the smugglers are not the miners. The smugglers are not the miners. They're two different sets of people. Very few of the miners are the smugglers. The smugglers are a different category of people. You have to catch them and put them in a prison.
You say this with a lot of confidence.
Absolutely, yes.
There are regulators. There's the GGMC, there's the Gold Board, there's the police, there's SOCO,
yeah, they failed.
All these entities. Why have they failed?
The APNO manifesto said, if I remember it rightly, that the government will bring in people from the RCMP and the FBI and the Scotland Yard to help them deal with crime here and corruption, and the government should bring them. It's as simple as that. They're committing a crime. We need help to fight crime. We have to bring in people from outside to help us fight crime. But to reduce the royalty rate on gold just because some people smuggle it is entirely ridiculous, because 1% is $1 billion. I calculated it before I came on this program tonight. 1%.
You came plan for me.
Yeah, I come not plan for you. Plan to deal with it. Because this question about reducing the royalty rate had come up before.
So what do you do?
With Sam Hines and them fighting to reduce the royalty rate. I remember I was in government at the time. I fought them with all the ferocity I could have commanded at the time, and they couldn't get it done. They wanted to reduce the rate, the royalty rate.
So what do you think the government should be telling the miners when they come and say, we need a relief package?
Relief package, like what? They're getting duty free, they're getting fuel, they're smuggling fuel from Venezuela, they're doing all kind of wickedness and lawlessness. They're smuggling all the time.
Yeah, but what should the government say?
Well, I cannot tell you what
I think
the government should say.
Yeah.
But the government has this idea that they need help. The government buys into this proposition that they need help. The two Souths need help. They need duty-free vehicle. They need duty-free ATV. They need duty-free this, duty-free that, duty-free that. I don't believe that. I don't believe any of it.
Tell me
the rice farmers need help. This body needs help. The GuySuCo needs subsidy. When are you going to start helping and subsidizing the people on the East Coast that voted for you? When are you going to start doing that?
You raise this
figure
issue.
It out?
You raise this
the
issue.
People who voted for the AFC APNO coalition. When are you going to start subsidizing them?
You know, there was a time not too long ago when the Auditor General used to publish in his report the amount of duties and concessions granted. As a matter of fact,
billions.
The law requires the Auditor General to carry out every year, every single year, a process audit of all the concessions granted under the Income Tax and Native Industry Act. Now, the Auditor General has not done anything about it. The Minister of Finance never did anything about it. No. The Parliament never did anything.
Nobody does anything about anything.
But
the minister reported in his budget how many billions we give up every year in duty-free. Everybody gets duty-free thing. Everybody wants everything duty-free. They don't want to pay.
Including the politicians. Would you stop duty-free concessions?
Well, yes. Altogether. For whom or for what reason? If I have to pay the VAT, the tax, on a simple pint tart at Demico, why should I give you duty-free on your Mercedes-Benz? What for? If the government needs the VAT on the pint tart, why do they have to give up the tax on a man who could afford a Mercedes-Benz? The whole thing is ridiculous. It's unfair. It doesn't make any sense.
You seem to have a special fascination about Mercedes.
Yeah. But yes.
You do.
I see them
the German engineering mastery, is it?
You give up the concession, the duty, and all these things. And you want VAT on a pint tart? You go to them, make a pot and a coffee, a small coffee for $120, you got to pay VAT on it, or a donut. It's ridiculous in this country. And the minister in his budget, what did he have to say about it? He had nothing to say about it. He said he can reduce VAT on Ovaltine and something else, Nestum and Milo or some nonsense.
Which is a brand name.
Yeah.
It's a brand name.
Totally inconsequential.
Rice.
Rice is a problem here. In the sense, it's a marketing problem. The news tonight reported that the Venezuelan government had indicated to the foreign ministry not to process Guyana's application for a new accreditation of a new ambassador to Caracas. Rice is a problem. They have to market the rice and get it sold. I don't think the people they have there in place now, they've put in place, they could do that. They have no...
Where's the people they put in place?
The chairman of the board. I don't know if they have these great skills in marketing rice.
Let me ask you this.
I mean, Houston and all them kind of people, they can't help rice.
Rice is a private sector
Absolutely. Not my
industry.
business. It shouldn't be my business at all.
Why does the... Yes.
Well, yeah, why the government get involved in it?
Man, you're preempting the question, man.
Because it's bothering me all the time, because they see all the rice farmers on the street saying, they come to the President Granger and say, we want with 23 billion. 23 billion from where? This government, this
from
gentleman, the minister, Jordan, did he promise them 23 billion? Did he promise the rice people 23 billion? It's ridiculous. All of it is ridiculous, nonsense. It makes no sense.
So what would you, as a short-term measure, now...
For the rice?
Yes. As opposed to the long-term, say, look, this is private sector. You go find your market. That's what your millers and your exporters ought to be doing. What would you do in the short term?
For the rice there? Well, the rice on the wharf gathering weevil? Give it away.
It's not gathering weevil.
Give it away. Give each citizen 20 pounds. Give away the rice. Years ago, Coca-Cola...
And who pays for it? Who pays for it?
The government paying for it anyhow, because Jordan promised them 23 billion.
No, he didn't. He didn't. He said he didn't.
Well, I think that would be a good investment if the government were to take some of that rice and gathering weevil and give it to everybody, 20 pounds. Everybody take 20 pounds and go home with it. We're giving rice to Dominica. We have to give some. We should give to the Syrian refugees in Macedonia, and some in Hungary, and some in Serbia. Just give it away if you can't sell it. As simple as that. Because we'll end up paying for it anyhow. Give it away. Give it to the Syrians and give some to other countries that need help.
One of the other issues that we've seen getting some traction, the word is, this question of the state media, control of state media, whether Chronicle should be owned and operated by the government. What's your view on what's happening in all of this discussion about the state media?
Well, all the politicians want to have their own outlet that they control, and they control information.
So why must taxpayers?
I believe that it could be a useful tool of the government in getting their message across to the public, provided
you didn't need a commercial newspaper
provided it doesn't come to the Treasury for support. If you could run a newspaper like the Chronicle or NCN or anything and run it without coming to the Treasury for support, I see no problem in that. But when you come to the Treasury for support, then I would say...
Well, Raymon, coming to the Treasury for support takes many forms. Not all of them are as visible.
Direct.
And direct. When ministries and government departments are told you have to buy the Chronicle, you have to advertise in the Chronicle, that's a subsidy. It's disguised, but it is.
Yeah, but if they have to advertise, they will have to advertise someplace anyhow.
Yes, but
they'll have to advertise.
But you should advertise. You should advertise where you get the biggest return for your dollar, or as you say, bang for your buck.
Yeah. But I don't think they should be prohibited from advertising in the Chronicle. As a matter of fact, people buy Chronicle just to read the ads. In terms of ads, people buy Chronicle just to read ads. It's a paper that is known to carry the ads. There's no paper in this country carrying ads like Chronicle. People buy Chronicle just to read ads. If you want to rent a place or buy a place or or look for accommodations, you have to get the Chronicle. There's not a paper carrying.
So if you want to do those things, but if you're not interested in those things, what value is it in?
As a state newspaper, the state gets its message out. I would support it so long as it doesn't take money from the treasury.
There is of course opportunity cost.
Yeah.
Those same assets, if they were used properly, would probably bring returns in the form of taxation.
Yeah, but if you were to privatize it, you'll end. What will happen if you were to privatize it? You will end up with the entire media being controlled by Glenn Lal and Ramrup. You don't want that either.
But I don't think Glenn Lal and Ramrup control the entire media.
Not yet.
And you know there are ways you can carry out a privatization that you can avoid a monopoly developing.
Let's say of the Chronicle, and how it will no longer be available to the state as a medium to get its message across.
What do you think, however? Well, that's a
so
fair
long
assessment.
as it starts to show losses and it's not properly run and it comes to the Treasury for support, that's the time where you have to think whether you really need to keep it or not. I'm not in favor of subsidizing none of those things.
What role do you think the politicians should exercise, and what obligations do you believe the government-owned and controlled media owe the politicians? And politicians, I mean the ruling politicians.
Yeah, but what you have in this, you have in the culture here. You have culture.
But
here.
it's not
The
time that we
political
change
culture.
it. It's
You
not
don't
time
change so easy.
No, but is it sometime you have to make the start?
You're going to make a start, but you're not going to change. So the politicians, they're in charge of this thing. They want to get a message across. They don't want to get rid of it, and so on. That's why they don't want to get rid of GuySuCo too.
Let me ask
because
you,
the politics there.
let me
Politics
ask you
intruding
this.
on economics all the time.
Let me ask you this question. Have you noticed any change in the Chronicle in terms of the allegiance and obeisance and groveling to the government as they did prior to 2011, May 11, 2015?
And as they did since independence. Next year is 50 years of this thing. Next year would make 50 years.
So are we going to continue for the next 50?
But you could have a state-owned newspaper that exercises some little more independence.
We got a few minutes left. I'm looking at the clock. Your friend, Mr. Jagdeo, leader of the opposition, going back for a third term, as you know.
Where as what president?
Yes,
is that
yes.
right? No, I'm not sure that decision of Chang is on appeal. Is it?
It is on appeal, yes.
Yeah, well, we'll see what comes out of that. But Jagdeo has been complaining a lot.
You think that decision has given him a lot of confidence
that he can run again? Yeah. I think if he has any confidence of running again and winning, he should get that out of his head.
Why is that?
Because it's not easy to dislodge a ruling party. It ain't so easy. Not in Guyana, it ain't easy. You had 28 years and 23 years. I don't know about these guys. It ain't easy. I don't think it's going to happen. So if Jagdeo thinking that in 5 years' time he could come and run again and win again, he should get that idea out of his head.
But as you know, it was...
I think I'll be about 93 by the time you get an exchange.
And you'll be there, yeah? Okay.
93, which means now I'm 73, going to give you the next 20 years.
You're talking of a voting population shift of 0.4% can change government, given the results of the last elections.
No.
Why is that so impossible? Why is that so unlikely?
The results are very problematic. I don't believe that was the true difference in voting. I don't believe that, of course. I think the voters list was very flawed to begin with, over 90-something thousand new names on the list. I think a lot of skullduggery took place in regions 1, 2, 7, 8, and 9. I really do believe that. I hope that they don't run this new local government elections thing with Suraj Bali still in place, because he has failed to deliver a proper election. So all of those things need to be changed. But Jagdeo has been complaining a lot about the changes that the government has been making, in personal changes. And I think that he has to be careful of that, because the PPP, when it came to power in 92, and I was in those days, I started to work with the government in 92 October. We made a lot of changes too. I remember one evening I was involved in firing about 40 directors of Guy Bank, Kwa Bank, GCI. It had nothing to do with race.
But Mr. Gaskin,
So what he's complaining about?
Hold on.
Go ahead.
The fact that it was done in 1992, is that the justification for doing it in 2015?
No, the fact that it was done and the fact that it's being done now means that you need to have it done, because these political people, the new administration cannot run with these political people. They can't run with these political and these loyalties that these people have to this thing. They would sabotage you all, and you have to make the change. And it has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with race and color of skin.
Okay, and put in what? Put in your own political people?
Oh, well, sometimes you have to put in your own political people.
No.
What we have to make sure, however, that when we put our own political people, that we have people who are capable of doing the job. The real problem is not in removing these people. I don't see a problem in removing these people. The real problem is who you're going to put there to replace them. And I'm not seeing that in many of the cases you put the correct people who are competent and able to do anything. That's the real problem.
When you say many of the people, you mean the changes that the government has made?
Yes. I don't see those. I'm not particularly excited about some of these new appointments, and I don't think they're capable of achieving anything, to tell you the truth. But those who were there, I think it is true that they ought to have been removed.
But
I really believe
the
that.
problem is...
And more should be removed. What is happening here? They're taking so long to remove people.
Well, let's deal with some fundamental issues. The fact is the education system has probably collapsed.
Well, I don't like use the word collapse.
What's the word you would use?
I would say it's crisis, a deep crisis. You have here the growth of the private educational system alongside a declining public education system. That's what you have here. That's what you have here, really. And if you want to get an education or whatever, you have to be able to afford it with the private.
Even if you get an education,
in which of the systems?
Well,
a big difference.
It is a big difference, but some of the government schools are not doing too badly. Some of them, not many.
3% of the total, 4% of the total.
I think part of the unaddressed problem is the prohibitive fees these private schools charge.
For those who want to go there.
Yes. I mean, the amount of money that parents have to fork out to get their children into these schools.
But those private schools are catering for those people who can fork out that money for those children. They're not catering for the working class children, really.
But a lot of them are making tremendous sacrifice.
For them to go there. But people do that for the children because they want the children to succeed. And they know if they send them to that school, they wouldn't do well. And if they send them to this school, they do well. They make the sacrifice.
What
ought to be done? What could be done?
The government ought to do. And education, as we know, is a long-term situation.
Well, you need, I would say, a lot of, it has to do with, first of all, with the teachers, the morale, the commitment, the dedication, the professionalism, if you pay them properly, and the curriculum, and so on, and you'll get better results. But you don't have teachers who are motivated and dedicated. They're poorly paid. We have to pay our teachers much better. The teachers in the private system, they get much better paid than the teachers in the public system. And it is the government that trains all these teachers that eventually end up in the private school system. The taxpayers of this country train all these teachers at Cyril Potter and so on, and they end up going to work for the private sector. That's what we have here, really. That's one of the problems.
So how do you prevent that? You can't.
You have to keep training more, and if you train your own teacher and you pay them well and they're motivated,
so
they probably stay with you. You have to pay them comparably with the other private schools.
That probably requires almost a doubling of the.
It requires we can afford to do it when we start collecting royalties from the bauxite. We can do it. If you don't collect,
I don't think so. I really don't.
Well, we have to look at the revenue side of this budget. We know about the expenditure on health, education, and public service pay. We know all of that on the right-hand side, the payments. We have to look and see where can we legitimately and comfortably collect revenue to meet these commitments we have. It's as simple as that. We know the commitments. You have to pay the people. You have to do a health system, education, and all that. And we have to look to see where we can get the revenue from.
Is that perhaps the, just final question, is that perhaps the biggest challenge facing this government, finding money to pay to create an efficient public service? Police, nurses, teachers.
Finding money for that and spending money in such a way that it's not just on these big projects and these big ticket items, but spending money at the local communities for local job creation at the local communities there, so people can get a livelihood. If you live at Enmore or Wales or Iflock or Cornelia Ida or Strathspey or Pleasant, rather than always thinking about some big project, some big ticket bridge over some place. We have to start looking to economics for people. We don't look at that because the people we have who run the economy and the ministers, they're trained differently. We have to do economics for people. The ordinary man, whether he's from Pleasance or Strathspey or Enmore or Cornelia, we have to deal with people.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Raymon Gaskin, our time has run out. I want to thank you very much, as usual. Operators and viewers, thank you. Good night. See you next week. You got transportation outside.